All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Vets to P.S.C. I go on these hiatuses from time to time, but I'm coming to you guys with a masterpiece. All right. I'm bringing you the creme de la creme. My man, Fred White. I've known Fred White for quite some time now. He's always been good to me. Very, very knowledgeable within this space. I'm going to let him introduce himself. That way you guys can know what I'm talking about and why I brought him on stage. Mr. Fred White, please bless us with your presence.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Whoever's watching the podcast, whoever may watch the podcast. My name is Fred White. I did 20 years in the Marine Corps, retired in 2009, started contracting in 2010. My first contract was in Afghanistan. I did anti-terrorism force protection, set up all the FOBs, over 7 FOBs that I set up, worked with a lot of different people, got to know with ISAF, so on and so forth. And then I got accepted to the WIPS program. Once I got accepted to the WIPS program, went to school in Majestic, Louisiana, my hometown, Baton Rouge. After I graduated, I went to Baghdad. I did 7 years in Baghdad, worked my way all the way up from a very basic PSS to a firearms instructor to ITI, shift lead, so on and so forth. And then I got the opportunity to go to Erbil. I spent 3 years in Erbil as an ITI, as a training mentor. And once I left there, I took a hiatus and I became a recruiter for about 3 years, working with Triple Canopy as a recruiter for WIPS. My guy told me, hey, you know the program, what better person to help people get into the program other than a recruiter? So I did that for 2 years, worst job I ever had. But I'm here to share knowledge on what makes you qualified, what doesn't make you qualified, and how to get in the program and how to be successful in the program. After that was done, I got an offer to become an instructor for WIPS 3 at the schoolhouse. WIPS 3 kicked off. I've been an instructor for the last 3 years since WIPS 3 kicked off in Amman, Jordan. I love it. It's a great thing to do. I'm willing to answer any questions that Ken have. Some things I can answer, some things I can't. Some things are proprietary, but I will let you know if those are proprietary and I can't answer them. That's pretty much my background. So 20 years military, pretty much 12 years, 13 years as an instructor working on the WIPS program.
Outstanding. All right, guys. So now you see why I bring this knowledge to you. Right now, this interview that I've got for you, Fred, is going to be coming from, hey, I'm brand new to the military or I haven't contracted ever and I'm looking at getting into contracting. I'm a veteran. Things just haven't worked out in the civilian world. I want to utilize my prior skills and come into the contracting world. So first, let's start off with those guys. Let's say, hey, I'm a infantry guy, or actually, what are the requirements? Let's say I want to come into the WIPS program. You've got static and you've got mobile. Can you please tell me the difference between the two?
Okay, first thing first, let me hit something up because this is how I came into the program. Nobody really gave me an insight on how to get into the program. First thing is this: go to Google. Google Worldwide Protection Services, WPS. State Department, they have them. SOC, Triple Canopy, Garter, Acuity. All of those companies are the companies that have the contracts to be able to do that. So that's one thing that can help a veteran that doesn't know what he's getting into, because that's what I did. It's called Google. I Googled security companies that I know that I was familiar with while I was overseas. That's the next thing. The next thing to understand is this: you have to make sure that when you Google those companies and you go into the application, you have to meet the requirements. The requirements say XYZ. You have to have a valid driver's license. You have to have XYZ. The key thing is this, Ken. What a lot of guys don't understand is you have to meet the requirement of your overseas deployment. And if you don't meet that requirement, which has changed because now I think it's 1 year in an environment that is considered as either a hostile environment or environment where you had to carry a gun or you had to provide some protective services. I don't really know. I'm not in the recruiting field anymore. I really don't talk to recruiters anymore because that's not something I really wanted to do. Here's the catch. If you meet the requirements and you go through the application process, the next thing they're going to do is do a background check on you. That background check includes tickets, monetary, what do you owe, any back taxes, anything that is going to pop up on a credit report. You pass that, guess what? Now you're on to the next process. Last time I was in, the next process is going to be writing your bio. You write your bio based upon your experience. Now, me as a recruiter, what I would do is I would ask guys a couple questions. Do you have X, Y, Z? And if they had that, then that's easy. I simply said, put together your bio from this date to this date based upon your DD-214 or any type of documentation, whether it be a verification of employment that you may have. Write me a one paragraph, maybe 4 sentences on your experience on how you provided protective operations out in the field. So they will provide me that. Once I get that, I put it together. While they're going through that background investigation, I'm running their bios. All right. Now, a lot of times when guys send me their bios, they probably don't know how to put their bio together. So what a recruiter does, at least what I did, is I kind of formulated their bio to what the client, being Department of State, wanted to read and wanted to hear. I'm not writing your bio for you. I'm putting it together in the right verbiage. Then I send it back to him or that individual, and that individual says, yes, that's what I did. That looks good, and sends it back to me. From there, we go into the bio process. Once the bio process is complete and the background investigation is complete, now we're waiting for his clearance to come through. A recruiter has nothing to do with the clearance. The clearance team will be in contact with the recruiter and in contact with me and in contact with the individual to make sure everything's going. What I did as a recruiter and what a lot of recruiters do is as you're going through your background process and as you're going through your clearance process, we keep in touch. We work in tandem. We work together, overlapping each other so that if you got a question and they're not answering the question, you can call me and I'll say, let me figure it out. Because there's a way that a recruiter can get in the system and he can find out whether or not either your background has been cleared or your bio has been approved, so on and so forth. Not every company is the same. When I worked for Triple Canopy, I had access to the State Department system. So I was able to see whether his bio was approved, his background, as well as his clearance process. So I was able to talk to them to see what the process is. What guys have to understand, from start to finish, this is about a 10 to 11 month process. So if they're looking to get in this game within 6 months, it's not going to happen. Why? Because there are only 6 to 7 people at OPO, which is the Office of Personnel Management, which works our clearance process, that work all the clearances for everybody. So it's a slow process. So I tell guys, don't quit your day job. Keep doing what you're doing until you get that your clearance is cleared, and then you get a school date. So that's pretty much the process until you get ready to go to school. What you got, Ken?
A lot of personnel that reach out to me, they reach out to me via YouTube or email, or they find me on LinkedIn. The guys find me. And one of the major problems that they've been having is, hey, can you help me write my, Ken, I need help writing my resume. All right, I got you. You know, that's a service that I will help provide the veterans. B, hey, man, now they get past that point. They get the phone call from the recruiters. Hey, we're going to send you documentation and paperwork. We need you to fill out your bio. We need you to fill out your SF-86. You need to start this whole process. So, guys, I'm going to let you guys know right now, I will be providing these services for veterans. I've been fine-tuning my skill sets within that contracting world and also the IT contracting overseas, because I ended up leaving that, going to the IT contracting. Now, Fred, In order for these guys to, would you say that it's probably better for them to start the process? Let's say the guys are military. I get a lot of questions. Hey, Ken, I'm about to ETS in about a year. How soon can I start? What would you recommend is a good time for guys wanting to get out of the military that meet these requirements, wanting to go overseas and contract?
All right, here's one thing legally that guys got to understand. One, you cannot start the process until you get a DD-214 member 2 copy. Okay. You can talk to a recruiter, but what a recruiter is going to tell you is because you're still under contract with the Department of Defense, they cannot start a contract with you. That is a violation. That is a direct violation. So here's what you can do. Once you get a member 2 copy or a member 4 copy, you can go and talk to a recruiter. A recruiter is not going to pick you up until at least 30 days to maybe about 15 days before you ETS. Here's how it worked with me. I got my DD-214 member 2 and member 4 copy. I submitted it to the company. The company said, hey, boom, you're good. If you are 6 months out, they're not going to mess with you because they're going to get fined if it's considered as poaching. If they try to get you 6 months out, that's considered as poaching because a DOD member is still on the contract. And it goes the same way with a different company. And that's a whole different story that we'll talk about later. But here's the deal. If you get a DD-214 and you're ready to get out, you can submit it. Just know this. Know that it's going to take you from the time you submit your DD-214 member 4 copy to the time you get your clearance process, it's going to take about 10 months. It's not going to happen overnight. I promise you. I don't care if you're a lieutenant colonel, full bird colonel, Navy SEAL, recon, MORSOC. It doesn't matter. The process has to take its way. They have to cross the T's and dot the I's per the client. That's the bottom line.
Okay. Question for you. What about military guys that already have a clearance? Let's say they were in the mill. They've got a secret or a top secret DOD. Are they able to do a lateral transfer? Will that time be shortened?
That's a good question, Ken. I'm glad you asked that because I get that all the time. And with my experience being a recruiter, I found out that it doesn't matter whether you have a TS clearance, a DOD, or a DOD clearance. It does not matter. You have to get a State Department clearance, which is a total different aspect. So therefore, even though you have a DOD clearance, whether it be TS or just regular secret, you still have to go to the clearance process with the Department of State, which is the client for the WPS program, and they have to clear you. Now, it all depends on the individual that you get. Sometimes they may reciprocate. Sometimes they may just say, hey, we're going to do SF-86 Charlie. Either way it goes, you're going to have to do an SF-86. It does not matter. You cannot, I can honestly tell you, and you can tell anybody, your DOD clearance, whether it's top secret, whether it's secret, does not roll over to the Department of State. The only way it'll probably roll over is if you have a current Department of State clearance and you're going within the Department of State. Let's say me, I want to go from the WPS program or a site supervisor program into the guard program. I'm working still within the WIPS program. So yes, my clearance is going to help me to go into a site supervisor guard. I'm still within the WPS program. DOD and Department of State does not overlap. You have to go through the clearance process.
Okay, awesome. So let's say start working now on the WIPS program. Will I lose my DOD clearance? And let's say I decide to leave the WIPS program later on in the future. You know, I do about 6 months and I'm like, all right, let me go back home or let me complete my year, right? Because it's always good to complete that year-long obligation, that contract. So I do a year, I come back home. How long do I have that State Department clearance is active before it goes away?
Okay, so here's my experience, and I can speak from my experience. Once I retired from the military, I went into the WIPS program. I still had my DOD TS clearance. Once I left DOD after 1 year and I went to WIPS, and I did not use my TS clearance because I was not in a TS clearance job, after a year, it goes away. However, it is still in OPO that you once had a TS clearance. So what they will do, if you're going in State Department and you're in the IT field and you rate a TS clearance and you get a TS clearance with DOS, and all of a sudden, let's say you go back to DOD. You don't want to work for DOS no more. You go back to DOD. DOD probably, more than likely, in my experience, will understand that you had a DOS clearance, which is higher than a DOD clearance. So they will probably reciprocate it and adjudicate it faster. DOS is not the same when it comes from DOD to DOS. From DOS to DOD, it's a little bit faster because DOD say, okay, well, he had a TS clearance with DOS. That's higher than ours. So yeah, we'll reciprocate. That's been my experience. I cannot say it's for everybody. What I can say is probably more than likely going to be on a case-by-case basis on that individual. Keep in mind, you, clean record. You got TS clearance in DOD, TS clearance in DOS. Guess what? Now you want to switch job functions. You're going from IT with DOS to IT with DOD. Guess what? You're good. Some guys have issues because of leaving one former job because of an altercation or whatever the case may be, and they get found out because, you know, DOS reports everything. When it goes to DOD and they see that in the system, then it may be an issue. So here's what we got to tell guys. One, if you're going to leave a job for a better job, leave on the right time, on your conditions, and not being fired and not burn a bridge. Because again, Ken, you never know when you might want to go back to the other. Here's the good thing about WIPs. If you are with WIPs and you get cleared with the WIPs 3, 1, your bio never expires. 2, your clearance is good. 3, once you're in the system and you leave on a good note after 1 year with that company, guess what? You can always come back. If there's any infractions that are reported on your record, then there may be some question. That's not saying you can't come back though. And that's one thing that I learned, that once you're in the WIPs program and you leave and you take a hiatus, as long as you're not gone more than 3 years, guess what? You can always come back.
Okay, outstanding. Now, I was in WIPs 2. I understand now we're in WIPs 3.
Yes.
What is the difference between WIPs 2 and WIPs 3?
All right. So some of the differences between WIPs 2 and WIPs 3 is this. 1, it's 42 days and all the training is done in Amman, Jordan. It's a one-stop shop. So you have instructors from every different company and every different atmosphere there is. And we all come together and we all work for one company. All right. That's proprietary information. So I can't tell you that. I'll tell you offline, but we all work for one company. And that's what State Department wanted. So with that being said, the period of instruction is going to be at one place. They wanted a one-stop shop because every company had their own curriculum, which was approved by the client. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the client said, hey, we want to produce one curriculum and we want one company and we want all the instructors, regardless of where they come from, to work for one company. Okay, cool. And we want all of the training to be done in Amman, Jordan. So everything that has to weave with WIPs 3, whether it be Guard, whether it be U.S. Guard, whether it be TCN Guard, whether it be WIPs, whether it be anything that falls under the WIPs 3 curriculum is done in Amman, Jordan.
Okay. All right. I had to stop this in the middle to let you guys know that there's some of you guys that are watching right now that haven't liked and subscribed. So I'm going to need you guys right now to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you guys can stay updated on the latest and greatest content. All right. We're going to get back to it. I have heard rumors that they're having a difficult time finding personnel to meet the physical requirements for WIPs 3. Is that true? Is that something that you can expand on?
All right. So here's what I say about that. Here's the thing. If you apply to become a WIPs, WPS, PSS, or Guard, or whatever, the application states the physical standards. All you have to do is Google FLETC PRT. It's the same thing that the law enforcement do. It's the same thing that the agents do. It's the same process. Here's the kicker. 1.5 mile run based on age and gender. 2 minutes pull-ups and sit-ups based on age and gender. Now, you have the 3 standards. Guess what? You want to come in this program, you want to do what we do. You look at the standards, and if you feel you cannot meet the standards, don't even apply. However, if you feel you can meet the standards and you know that the process is going to take 10 to 11 months, guess what? And you are not physically fit, you have 10 to 11 months to run 1.5 miles. And there's several different steps out there to help you run 1.5 miles. I'm 54. I run 1.5 miles in 12 minutes and 9 seconds. All right. So my thing is this. If a person does not understand that you have to take a PRT, you have to be physically fit. And Ken, you know why you got to be physically fit. 1, you got to know how to kick down doors. You got to know how to carry personnel. You got to know how to wear body armor. You're going to be wearing 150 pounds worth of gear on your body at any given time, to include your plates. Your plates alone weigh 25.5 pounds. So therefore, if you want to get in this program, you have to have some type of physical agility within yourself. The issue that we're finding is this. They know if you look at the elevation between, if I'm in Louisiana or I'm in Virginia or you in Minnesota, look at the elevation. All you got to do is Google it. What is the elevation in Amman, Jordan? Amman, Jordan elevation is this. I am here. How do I compensate for it? It's simple. This is what I tell guys. You want to really know how to run a PFT? Here's the deal. Run 1 mile every day as fast as you can. 1 mile. And then once you do that for a week, you run 0.5 mile as fast as you can. That's the second week. Your third week, run 1.5 miles at a nice pace to see where you stand. And then guess what? Once you know where you stand after 2-3 weeks, then you can turn around and say, okay, I'm going to go back to this. Take a week off. Let your body adjust. Okay. If you want to wear a weight vest, wear a weight vest. If you want to do it with one of those breathing masks for CrossFit, do it. That's up to you. Guess what? You will pass the PRT test mixed with push-ups and sit-ups. So between the 1.5 mile run and the sit-ups and the push-ups, we've seen guys that come and for the most part, it is read to you. You must run. You must run 1.5 miles in this time. We don't tell you that time because you already know that time. The TC is going to tell you the time before. The next thing is the instructors don't look at your time because we're not biased. All we look at is the technique. The biggest thing is guys not locking out their arms. They're doing this. They have to lock out. You have to come to full extension and you have to lock out. The next thing is they're for the crunch, for the sit-ups, they're not doing this. This is what they're doing. They're grabbing their shirt and they're raising their elbows. You cannot do that. You have to come up, touch your thighs, and down. Your arms have to stay complete on your chest the whole time. Guys are doing this. That's kipping. You can't do that. If your arms come off your chest, that does not count. The instructors are going to tell you. We'll give you 3 warnings. Keep in mind, these guys are going to understand we have a training manager, a training coordinator, a deputy training manager, and the GTM at every PT session, every time we take a PRT. So guess what? They're looking at us and they're looking at the students. And guess what? If a student has a problem and that GTM or one of those managers saw it, guess what? Lately, we have not had a problem because we tell the students, that's your first warning. That's your second warning. And we'll tell them, hey, keep them down to your chest, or lock your arms out, or come straight out and extend your elbows. And they do it. So we've never dropped anybody for sit-ups or crunches unless it's on their own recognizance. As far as the run is on them. We got clocks. We got a clock at the halfway point. We got a clock at the end point, and we got instructors in between that's running the clock. And we have video. Everything is videotaped when we come to the PRT. So that's what they got to understand is it's not us. It's the client. You're being watched from the client's perspective, and you're being held to a standard because they're looking at you saying, I'm going to keep my eye on that guy throughout the whole time of training, because all of our classes are videotaped. So all the students are being watched just like the instructors being watched.
I think that's pretty awesome. I know whenever I was an instructor, we had a lot of issues with people flagging personnel and stuff like that. I would have cameras in the glasses, so that would save me. But it was one of
So,
those things where you got a safety hazard, constant
well,
flagging.
it's funny you say that because we had a student day one. So sort of the process, you go take the PRT, you pass, you start range week. Range week is about 7 days. The first period is going to be Glock and Mark 18. And then you go to M4. And then you go to 240. And then you go to 249. You get all that period of instruction in class, all right? After you get your Glock class, we go into download, upload, practice drills in the classroom, meaning we give you dummy rounds, we give you dummy magazines, and we tell you. We do that for about 2 hours. We identify students that need extra help, and we take them to the side, and an instructor will work with them individually, okay? We go to the range the next day. Part of our requirement is within the first day of range, you need to run 3 quals. So 3 quals on one weapon system. What that does, that says if I got 30 students and all of them qual, I can move on to another period of instruction. If I have 2 guys that don't qual, now I have 2 more times to run them through remediation, a semi-qual, then a qual. Every student has 6 attempts to qual with every weapon system, right? We had a class of 32. Everybody went through except 2. We took those 2, we put them on a different range. We ran the other 30 on another range doing advanced drills. Those 2 went to remediation. They wound up qualling. They came back, they linked up, and guess what? We continue to put them in the mix. Now that's a plus. You know why? Because now we're able to go from qual to shooting on the move, shooting from barricades, shooting from different positions, shooting from standing, shooting from different distances. We can also go into walking and shooting. We just did that with my last class before I left, which was unheard of because we didn't have a lot of guys that understood how to shoot. Here's another kicker. That same kid that I was telling you about, how we go through the first day of upload, download with dummies. The instructor was standing right next to him and said, unload, show clear. Now I'll ask you, and I ask anybody out there on this podcast, when I say unload, show clear, what does that mean to you? The first thing should come to your mind after we taught you in the period of instruction is remove the source of ammunition, lock the slide to the rear, clear the weapon with a 3-point safety check. Guess what this kid did? He pulled the trigger and started unloading his weapon. That kid was gone. That was a major safety violation. You see what I'm getting? Understanding. When you tell a guy unload, show clear, that means XYZ. I ask you, if I put this kid protecting a diplomat on my team and he goes to load his weapon in my vehicle, is that right or wrong? That's wrong, because you should load your vehicle, you should load your weapon in a safe direction, pointed down range or in a safety barrel. Because what if it goes off in an armored vehicle and all the rounds go somewhere else? And you already know what I'm talking about, Ken, because you were downrange and you heard it. You hear that distinct click, clink, lock the side. What are you doing, dude? Are you loading your weapon in the car? This is an armored vehicle. And keeping your finger straight off the trigger. I mean, it's just simple things like that are the things that we're dealing with. It's not major things, because we can teach a guy how to tie a shoe any different way. It's things that when it comes to the range week, they just don't get it.
Gotcha.
And we understand, because a lot of guys have not been behind a saw, been behind a 240, or never shot a Glock. We're not here to teach you, but we're here to aid you. And what guys got to understand is, you coming into this program, you should have a set of skills. When you tell an instructor and he's asking you, have you ever shot a Glock? And you say, I've never touched a Glock. What did you just do? You just told me that you lied to your recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Now, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. because we're not here to drop nobody. But what we are here to do, you're supposed to be bringing a set of skills to the table that you already have done in protective security services.
Yep. I remember one of the major things whenever I first came in, they told me your resume gets you in the door. After that, you perform. That's your
Yeah.
interview.
It's still an interview. Go 42 days. You want a 42-day interview at the schoolhouse. And a lot of guys don't get that.
Yep.
They think, oh, I got a job. You're not getting benefits. You're not getting paid. You're still in the interview process. And guess what? Department of State is still, the client is still looking at you. You never know when they may come out. And we tell them all the time, hey, look, guys, the client's going to come out. We don't care because we know who they are and they know us. They hired us. They screened our interview. They signed off to say, yes, Fred White can be an instructor for WIPS 3. They also can fire us. So what they got to understand is going through this process doesn't, just because you're in schoolhouse, you're a student. You're still in the interview process for 42 days. And they have to understand that we as instructors still have contacts downrange. So when the PM and the shift lead and the USC calls us and asks us about a guy, guess what? I know a guy that knows a guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of times we'll say, hey, he's a good cat. He's good to go, because that's what we do. The kid is going through, as long as he's progressing, he's fine. And we can't really say, oh, man, that kid don't need to be on the program. We cannot do that legally as an instructor, because now we're showing bias to one person or the other. So what we do is say, he's good to go. He's doing good. He's progressing well. And that's it.
Fred, this is going to be part one. I'm pretty sure that we're going to be bringing you back.
That's
I
fine.
know a lot of guys are going to have a lot of questions after this. It was great. I want them to hear it from the horse's mouth, coming directly from Fred White. Like I said, guys.
Here's the thing, and make sure you stress, you know, I'm not just some guy that just been on the program. We're looking at 12 to 14 years of experience on this program. And I'm one of the junior guys on the program. We got guys that's got 20 years on the program, and they're going to tell you the same thing. I want to address one thing that you had mentioned to me about the other than honorable discharge with honorable conditions. That is going to be the company that he applies to, and that company has submitted to state. And the reason why I say this is because I ran into that situation with one of my candidates, and the client did approve it, but it's a case-by-case basis. And I can't speak about WIPS 3 because I wasn't a recruiter for WIPS 3. I was a recruiter for WIPS 2. But I knew when I was a recruiter for WIPS 2, it was a case-by-case basis. For instance, not only with that, you had a guy that got a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star, but he had less than 11 months in a combat environment. State Department, the client, approved it because he would have had his full 12 months and he would have met all the requirements, but he got a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star and he was injured and he still made it. So again, things are a case-by-case basis. Same thing with marijuana and DUIs. DUIs, if it's over a year, case-by-case basis. If it's under a year, no way. It ain't going to fly. If you have certain monetary debt, like you owe taxes, child support, case-by-case basis, state's probably not going to do it. If you have, now when they say debt, they mean credit card debt, not a mortgage, not that. They mean credit card debt, and they mean overdue taxes and things like that. That's what they mean when they say personal debt. So don't let a guy, don't let him get discouraged. If he has a ticket, that's probably no big deal. They get tickets all the time. But what they're talking about is felony convictions, reckless driving, things of that nature, and they should be good. I think they raised the debt ceiling to about $25,000. So as long as a guy is not late on his debt and he has less than $25,000, he should be good. Don't quote me on that. That has to be with the recruiter of the company that he's applying to, because every company is different. All right.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Another thing that I get a lot of guys is they've had a shady past. You know, look, I got out of a group on bad terms. I got a divorce. I have a typical story. You know, I got a divorce, fell into some debt. severe PTSD outside of it, difficult times. And but one thing that I did was after about a year, I showed them, hey, I'm trying to pay down this debt that I owe. I'm trying to do this. Like I was in a hurt locker. But I was able to articulate that, able to show the investigator, because I had to speak to the State Department investigator for my clearance 3 separate times.
Yeah.
On the second time, she's like, Ken, you got to show me something that you're going above and beyond in order for me to, like, I want to help you. I get it. And I was like, you know what, dude, I remember, because she didn't even want to. I was at that time, I was living with my brother. Right. My life was complete shambles. I was living with my brother, and he lived next to a bunch of drug dealers next door.
Yeah.
So it was shady, like shady ass little projects. And so she came and visited. After that, she was like, nah, we're going to link up in the Starbucks. And but she told me, she was like, look, I want to help you out. I know you're a good guy. I want to help you out, but you got to show me that, you're doing something to get out of this. You got credit card debt, you got, delinquencies, you got all this. So finally I linked up with her in the Starbucks, and I told her, I was like, and I still remember her name. I'm not going to put it out there, but I told her, I'm like, look, man, I'm trying. I was like, as a matter of fact, let me show you something. And I took her to my SUV. I was like, look at every single tire here. They're all used different tires. They literally lose air. I was like, my windows don't roll down. I opened the door. I was like, look at this. My panel on the door is falling apart. I was like, let me show you something. I ended up moving out of my brother's house and freaking living out of my van, out of my SUV for a little bit.
Yeah.
I opened it and I was like, this is my sleeping bag. This is the clothes that I just washed. I was like, young lady, I'm trying. I was like, I just need a break financially. I just need a break. You know, and she was just like, all right, I got you. So she knew I was,
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you a story about a candidate that came through. He was a student, and you're not going to believe this. Well, you will, but a lot of the people that we talk to are not going to believe this. This kid was an outstanding performer. Didn't know nothing about him. We as recruiters, we get to know our students, but we don't get close to them. So when we do an introduction and then we get the students to introduce themselves, we learn a little bit about them. Well, close to the end of the period of the course, we were talking to the students, and they were doing their constructor interviews and so on and so forth. And this one guy, never forget him, man. I'm not going to mention his name. He said, Gunny, if you knew me prior to this course, I was sleeping in my car and I was an alcoholic. He said, the WHIPS program changed my life. Now, here's the kicker. He was married to a beautiful woman for about 10 years. Helped her get her education, helped her start her business, the whole 9 yards. And then all of a sudden, she wanted a divorce. And it sent him into a spiral. Okay? So when it sent him into a spiral, he didn't know what to do. Somehow, some way, he decided to get his life together. And at the end of the course, he said, Gunny, if you knew who I was 42 days ago, I was an alcoholic sleeping in my vehicle. And he said, this has changed my life. So what is the story to be told? There are people just like you. I wasn't fortunate enough to be in that situation, but there are people like you that you could share your story that may have a similar story. The thing is you got to put on your big boy pants and you got to say to yourself, God is not going to deal you, or the man above, whoever you believe in, is not going to deal you a set of cards that you cannot handle. Just like you got off your ass and you did what you needed to do, and look at you right now, you could write a book on your experiences. A lot of these other kids don't even know. They don't even know. You know what I'm saying? They don't even know about your combat experience. They don't even know about, the things you've done. Just being homeless is one aspect of a veteran that people don't even know about. You know what I'm saying? I've never had that ability. However, I've had down times, been blown up, been shot at, all that good stuff. 4 combat tours. You've probably been worse than that. You probably had 4 combat tours, living in your car, broke, and look at you now. So that is a story that you can tell in your podcast to all of these guys that think that alcohol and drugs is the end of all evil. No, it's not. There's a way out. You just got to put your big boy pants on, and you just got to know and understand that you got to put that intestinal fortitude in front of you and move forward.
Yep, I
Because
agree.
you didn't let it beat you down, did it?
Yep, no, I agree. It's funny because when I remember when I first started in whips and going overseas, you get a lot of guys that have been there for 5, 7 years. Back when Blackwater, and they were like, "Oh man, back then whips guys used to make $750 a day," and I'm like, "Yeah, cool story, bro." But they were all jaded, and they're like, "Man, I want to get out of here, whatever." And I remember saying to myself, "I'm like, dude, screw that, man." I was like, I was living out of my freaking SUV. I was having to fight MMA. I was having to do all kinds of stuff to get out of debt. Bachelorette parties because I was damn good looking while fighting MMA.
Yeah, yeah,
But I was
yeah,
doing bachelorette parties, and I'd take
yeah,
that
yeah,
cash and I would freaking pay my bills down, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to do what
hell
you got
yeah.
to do, man. But I tell guys all the time, man. I'm like, look, this is you can hate you can get into whips and absolutely hate it. Be like, man, I don't get along with the client. I gotta watch my P's and Q's. I got it. But at the end of the day, guess what you're not doing? You're not fucking breaking your back in some hot ass sun. I live in Florida. Freaking 110 degrees, freaking with a jackhammer breaking the side of a pool for freaking pennies. You're overseas doing a couple runs a day, freaking wearing a suit in an armored, air-conditioned vehicle, looking like a cool guy, making freaking bank, getting 2 months on, or what is it, 90 days on, 30 days off, 30 days
Yeah,
of how many vacations is that a year? 60, 90?
yeah. And
And you're
it's the easiest six-figure job you'll ever have. I mean, there's
exactly
times that you won't even make a run and you got to go out and train for about 8 hours. But guess what? You're still getting paid. And
hanging out with the boys.
at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, yes, is it a high threat environment? It is. Guess what? Did you die today? No, you didn't. Well, let's look at this. Trash man makes about $13 an hour, and he's got to smell shit all day. Pick and choose.
Yep.
Pick and choose what you want to do. If you're at your contract location and you don't have nothing to do, that's the best time to get a free education. One,
Absolutely.
the client is going to pay for you to get education. Two, your VA is going to pay for you to get education. So guess what? You got two forms of people paying you to get an education. So educate yourself to get out of the whips and overseas program to where you can get into a program stateside, and then you can say, hey, because you can always come back. You can always come back.
Yep.
And let's top on this. I tell guys all the time, work your way out of contracting. Don't be a slave to contracting, because here's what happens. They see this money. They say, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy this. And then all of a sudden, those bills pile up. Then all of a sudden, come tax time, now you got to pay taxes on all the money that you made. So now you're saying to yourself, man, I was making six figures. Yeah, you made six figures on paper, but what did you actually bring home after taxes and all the bills that you paid? That's one thing. The next thing is I say, don't be a slave. Save the money, put some money aside, and work your way out of contracting. If you work your way out of contracting, you're not a slave to it, and you can always come back to it. And that's what I've seen a lot of guys do. Me personally, prime example. I've been doing it for 14 years. It's not because I have to. It's because I choose to, because I get bored real easy. This keeps me on my toes, and I love what I do. I love being around whips personnel, military personnel. It's what I do. I could stop this at any given time. But I love what I do, and I enjoy what I do, because just the same reason why we're sitting here and I'm educating people, that's what I like to do. I want to educate you. Plus, I get this. Oh, man, you're just an old crusty gunny. Okay, let's go shoot. These guys shoot. I had a guy shoot a 103 out of 299 points in a pistol. And I say, and you claim you a shooter and you shot a 103? Oh, I've never shot a Glock in my life. Okay. And we see it all the time. We see guys that come from group and they say they shot good. Guess what? They still can't shoot.
Bro, don't even get me started on group dudes.
We're like, this is Izzy. I know you've seen Izzy. What's wrong? We got DDMs. We got Rangers. We got all people. What I'm trying to say is this. It does not matter what type of skills you have. If you can shoot and you can shoot, then that's fine. And if not, here's what I tell you. Go to the range. Get an Izzy target. Get a Glock, whether you rent it or own it, and shoot 25 yards. That's the problem we see. A lot of guys cannot shoot 25 yards, 4 rounds standing, 4 rounds kneeling. Everything else is good, but it's a 25-yard line that they cannot get because they're not focusing on the sights. They're not focusing on their rear sights and front sights, their stance, grip, the fundamentals of shooting. And I mean, we got pistols dipping. We got pistols like this. We tell guys that do this, this is what they do, or this is what they do. And I'm like, you're not gonna qualify like that. Now, everything in 2 rounds, 2 seconds, that's fine. But other than that, it's all the fundamentals. That's all it is.
Stand by. So the Whips 3 change the standards? You talk about 25-yard line, 2 rounds in 4 seconds?
Nope. You have 8 rounds, 4 rounds standing, 4 rounds kneeling.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yep. Now, it was 2 rounds at the 25 when we came through. So now it's 8 rounds from the 25.
Okay.
4 standing, 4 kneeling. Whether it be double kneeling, supported kneeling, or single kneeling, non-supported kneeling. It doesn't matter. You can do it whichever way you want. We teach them how to do it. But that's the kicker. Guys cannot hit the broadside of a barn at 25 yards. And then we even show them this. And we as instructors, when we do a night shoot with the Maul D and MVGs, we take a Glock and an instructor will go to the 100-yard line and hit steel with MVGs at night with a Glock. And they're like, oh, wow. Hey, if we can do it, you can do it.
That's right. Lead by example.
Exactly. And we demonstrate. Here's the kicker. Every range or every yard line, we demonstrate what this course of fire is. So they see us do it and they know we can do it. And they see our shot group, every instructor. The lead instructor could say, hey, Ken, you're it today. You're online. You're going to be my demo guy. Are you ready? It's either you got it or you don't got it. It ain't no practice. It's, hey, Ken, you're up today. You're my demo guy. So therefore, you got to go in. Hey, watch what Ken does at 25 yards. Watch what he does. He's going to shoot 2 rounds in 2 seconds. He's going to drop to the kneeling. He's going to shoot 2 rounds in the kneeling. Instructor, it's whatever you want. It's double kneeling, supported kneeling, or unsupported kneeling. It's your choice. So, and we'll talk about, like, if I was your lead instructor, I'll say, hey, Ken, how do you want to do it? I want to do double kneeling. I'll do double kneeling. I'll do double kneeling. Okay, double kneeling. And I'll say, hey, my instructor is going to demonstrate double kneeling. Double kneeling is 1 set. You have single kneeling and you have supported kneeling. That is just one way that we're going to demonstrate. And then we demonstrate both of them. But we do it close in so the students can understand. One, it gives you as an instructor saying, hey, we're going to go to the 5-yard line. He's going to demonstrate supported kneeling and non-supported kneeling. That way, hey, you're not looking at the target. You're looking at his position. You're looking at how he shoots, nice and easy. And that's what we're looking at.
No, man, I like that. I like that leading by example. I like the fact that you guys demonstrate. It gives all the instructors credibility, but it also shows the people that it can be done. You know, someone has walked that path before you. Someone is showing you right then and there that you're able to do that. Hey, man, knock it out. Perform.
Hey, here's another thing I'd like to add is what they have to understand is read the application and read the requirements. 1, the instructors on the program do not make the requirements. 2, the company that has the contract does not make the requirements. If you don't meet the requirements, you can't go on a certain political platform or a platform and start saying, this company did me wrong, this company did me wrong, because it has happened before. Here's the bottom line, guys. If you meet the requirements, you meet the requirements. And if you don't meet the requirements, then find a way to meet the requirements. The next thing is, if you're not physically fit and you can't not run and meet the flexi requirements for the PRT, go get physically fit. If you cannot shoot a gun, then go rent a Glock, buy a Glock, find an M4, and shoot the M4 to familiarize with it. That's all we're saying. Once you're familiarized with it, then guess what? We'll help you along the way. People come to us all the time at the schoolhouse. I've never picked up an M4. I've never touched a Glock. So how did you get to where you are? How did you get here? Did you lie or what?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you never touched this weapon system, how did you get here? That's my biggest thing. And if that's the only thing I could share is be honest, be true. If you want to come in this industry, educate yourself, train yourself prior to coming to the industry. I don't care if you take a week-long course and you come here and you say, yes, I touched a Glock. What did you do? I took a week-long course. Guess what? Boom, we in. So now you're familiarized. When you tell me I've never touched this weapon system before, and now you're in the hands of me to release you to go protect diplomats, and the shift lead in USC say, how did you get here? That's the biggest thing. That's all I'm saying. Not to take credit from anybody in the industry. You want to come in the industry, come prepared.
I agree. And there's plenty of shooting courses out there, guys. I know when I went through the GRS, before I went to GRS, I went to Rogers Shooting School up in Tennessee, LJ, Georgia, and all that.
Been there. Been to Rogers. We as instructors get paid to go and further our education at different shooting courses because we don't get to shoot all the time. Remember what I told you? I'm coming back off a leave from 48 days. The minute I get back, I got to be operational within 24 hours. My PI could say, Fred, you're it. You're the guy that's going to be shooting today. You're going to do all my demos. Guess what? I'm in the hot seat, baby. And there's no room for error. Everything's being videotaped and the client is watching. The students are watching. There is no room for error. So you just got to remember that you have to stay focused, front sight focus on every weapon system that you're shooting and educate yourself even on your off time. And they pay for it. I just submit the receipt and they pay for it. I go to schools all the time. I've been to Rogers. I've been to all of them, man. I go all the time. You know what I'm saying? But I only focus on Glock and M4. I don't really focus on SIG just because of the fact we really don't use the SIG. That's for the agents. But I familiarize myself with the SIG because that's what they use. And if an agent come out, which we do have agents from the embassy that come out, we do have them, and we have to train them as well. If we're not familiar with the weapon system that they shoot, then guess what? They're going to look at us like, how are you instructor? Because we know what weapon system. They have a choice, whether it be a Glock or SIG 936 or 365. It's up to them.
Awesome. Well, hey, Fred, we're hitting the 1 hour mark right now.
Yep.
I would love to have you back. Appreciate all the information. I'm pretty sure everybody here that's made it this long for the hour. Hey, man, I appreciate you trooping it out, listening to my man Fred, taking in that wisdom, that knowledge. You have any questions, please drop it in the chat. Let us know, and we'll respond to you. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to give you the NCO thing. If I don't know the answer, I will find out the answer.
That's it. That's it, baby. Hey, Ken, it was great talking to you, man. I hope this information reaches a lot of guys, and I hope they understand the biggest thing is the qualifications. Don't apply if you're not qualified. If you're qualified, apply. We'll be glad to bring you in. We're going to teach you everything you need to know. It's not a hard course. We just got to get you past range week and get you past the PRT. After that, you're good. You in good hands, baby. You in good hands.
Hanging out with the boys. Hanging out with the boys.
Hey, you come with a positive mental attitude, and guess what? You'll be what they call a operator if you choose to.
Bro, just make your money, dude. Just make your money.
I saw it. I saw it.
Just make your money.
Yeah. But it's a good time. It's a good time, and it was great to share my knowledge with you. I'm not going to BS anybody. I'm just going to tell you what it's like and what it is. It's straight cut and dry. The instructors don't candy coat anything. We're not going to stroke you. We're not going to give you the answers to the test. We're going to just put you to the test.
Oh, yeah, man. Show up prepared.
That's it.
Perform.
That's it.
All right. I appreciate you, Fred. Thanks a lot, man.
All right, man.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
You too, man. Take care.
Bye.
Good luck, guys.
All right, guys. So that concludes today's interview / podcast. I want to give thanks to Fred White for allocating an hour of his time to helping give this knowledge to us to make us all successful. Those of you guys wanting to get into the State Department contracting overseas, whether it's the static side or the mobile side, there you have it. follow Fred White's guidance, and you will be successful. All right. In the meantime, if you want to see more content like this, you want to help motivate me to create more content like this, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Send me a message. Any questions that you guys have, I always take the time to try to answer it to the best of my knowledge. And like I said, if I don't know the answer to that question, I will find you the answer to that question. So again, have a good one, guys. Stay safe out there and best of luck.